What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hopsgeeknews, a podcast that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows, and typically we feature a beer of the week. I have no beer this week. Lauren probably does. I've been battling some sickness and things like that, so I'm drinking water, the elixir of life. But we have a great episode for you. This is a special creator episode where we have Kyle Starks on to talk about his newest coming book, Karate Prom. Trust me, you are going to love this if you're a fan of really cool style animation. If you love things like Cobra Kai, I got like a little bit of Star Wars influence in there as well. I felt like at times it's just a lot of 80s vibes to me all around. It was such a great comic book. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. So first things first, go ahead, like, subscribe, share. Anywhere you find podcasts, Hopsgeeknews, social media, same name. And with that said, Lauren, go ahead. What do you have over there?
Not to shock anybody, but I have Yacht Money from Sideward Brewing. My husband stocked up on this because it's one of our favorite local beers, and they only release it like once a year now. So he bought a bunch of 4-packs. So that is what I'm drinking in my Sideward Brewing glass. It is a lovely New England, and I'm sure anybody who's been listening to us has heard me rave about it many a time. So if ever in Orlando, go to Sideward Brewing.
I feel like that's the only thing you've been drinking lately. It's like on Instagram, everything. That's the only thing you've posted.
Yep. And you can get boiled peanuts there too. So it's a win-win.
Well, I'm in Virginia where boiled peanuts are apparently home. They're everywhere. I didn't know that until I passed a peanut farm and I was like, oh, this is where peanuts are grown. Great. No idea. But
they're delicious.
Anyways, we have a special guest. Kyle, welcome to the show. You know him from things such as he's written and drawn a lot of comics. He's been Eisner nominated, and he's done things such as Rick and Morty, Mars Attacks, Peacemaker, and Where Monsters Lie. So welcome to the show, Kyle. How are you doing? Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I didn't know about the beer thing. I'm sober. I just have a Coke Zero.
Hey, Coke's
it's my favorite year.
We support all beverages, even water.
We never like to, that's just what we like to do. We like to typically have a beer. Nobody ever has to have one, but me, I got the water, and Coke is my my dad's favorite drink, actually. So I have a affinity with Coke, and my son's always like, can I have a Coke? Can I have a Coke? So we keep them stocked around the house, even though I don't actually normally drink them, but sometimes my dad likes to come around.
I almost bought those Marvel Cokes, and I don't even drink Coke.
They have like the Marvel ones with Daredevil and stuff now. I was like, I want these just for the can because it makes me feel like Star Wars all over again with the Pepsi cans. But
I've seen them. I had an Iron Man Coke Zero.
Oh, it is clever. It is clever that they're kind of bringing that back in a way, because I feel like it's an easy grab. People are going to buy it, I guess. Is there a shortage of people buying soda? Probably not. But you throw a Marvel character on there, man, you're going to get more people, I guess, just for the can, at least. Anyways, Kyle, we like to always dive in. Before we get to the comic book Karate Prom, we like to dive in with your geek origin story. So tell us, how did you get into the world of comic books? How did you dive into these wonderful worlds that you like to play in?
Oh, like how I became a fan, or how I started making comics, or both?
Both.
Oh boy, I got a story then.
I love it.
So it's interesting. My parents for sure were blue collar Southern Indian people. They did not read comics. I don't know why me and my brother had a comic pool. I think it's because of my uncle. My uncle's name is Tony Starks with an S at the end.
That's so cool.
And he is, I can tell you from experience, no one cared about Iron Man until that movie came out. No one ever called us Tony Stark. No one made a joke ever until that movie came out. But excuse me, he's always had like a gold and silver age like side hustle. He used to like mail out like Xerox catalogs and stuff. It's crazy. So I assume why he must have given us comic something. I don't know. So I don't know why we started. I don't know why we had comic pools. We just always did. And I'm old, so that was the time when you knew the 3 other people who knew who Nightcrawler was, and you were like, that's all you just want to talk to those guys about Nightcrawler all the time. And when I was a teen, I started working at that same shop I had my pull from, and that place was a used video store that also had comics, that had used books, used records, baseball cards, pornography,
all the good stuff,
all the things you would want, and baseball cards. Who cares? But so I had if I wanted to watch a movie, I could watch a movie. If I wanted to read a book, I could read a book. We read all the comics every week. So I'm just a pop culture guy. I've always liked pop culture. Definitely. Then I would kind of half draw comics. I'd draw things in the 90s, which is when I was working there, and I graduated and went to college. They were bad. Comics weren't good. I say this proudly. Comics were gritty and overly serious and not much fun and very dark. And I got out of comics. I went to college to be a fine artist, capital F, capital A. And I very quickly was like, there's no money in this. There's no way to survive this. And so I sort of drifted away and started drinking a lot. I'm sober now. I started drinking a lot, just trying to kiss some girls at bars. And I met my wife and we started having kids. And after we had the first kid, which would be, she turned 16 this year. So we're talking 16 years ago. We were about to have another one 2 years later. And I realized like I would never have time to myself again. Like my free time would be gone because my life had been 3/4. Like this child is my life. Right. And so I made a bucket list of things that I wanted to do before my next kid was born. And I don't remember anything else on the list because I did the first thing, which was finish a comic, not make a comic, not start a comic, not write a comic. It was finish a comic. I ended up doing like 160 page. Don't do anything the way that I did.
You shot for the stars right off the bat. You're like, we're going all the way.
I think it set up a lot of creative things for me then because I was like, well, what will I finish? I need to make something that I wish existed. And the first book I made was a book called Legend of Ricky Thunder, which was recently optioned. It's never published. You can get on my shop, kylesparks.com. But it was a wrestling comic, and there wasn't wrestling comics then. And I was like, oh, this will trick me. I want it to exist, and I'll finish it because I wish it existed. And that's kind of very much been a North Star for me in every project since. And what happened was, it was supposed to be something I did before my kid was born, and I just fell in love with the process. I liked it when I was younger. It had probably been 8 years, 10 years, maybe less. I hadn't read a comic. I mean, I was completely in a different a different environment, different stratosphere. And I quickly returned, obviously, because I love it. It just reminded me how much I love comics and the process of it. So I made this comic. Now we get to my profession. That's why do I like stuff? I don't know, because it's always around. That's the answer. If you can consume everything, which is kind of now, like right now, if you want to listen to a song, you would listen to it.
Oh,
if you want to watch them. Yeah. So it's the same. Like, but that was like in 1995, like you had to work at that store, you know what I mean? To listen to any record that came in. If someone brought something in, you'd be like, I'm gonna take it home. They'd be like, fine, take it home, bring it back tomorrow or whatever. I made the second book I made. So I did Legend of Ricky Thunder, and I didn't advertise it. I put it up as a twice weekly webcomic. I never told anyone about. I was simply doing it for myself, and it got discovered. And people were like, "Oh, it's good," and I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." And they're like, "You should go to conventions," and I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because you'll meet people," and I'm like, And they're like, "No, it'll be fun. More people will learn about your book." And I was like, "Oh, I want people to read my book. I like it." And so I went to a convention. I really liked it. I was like, I got to make another book because I like making a book so much. So the next book I did was called Sex Castle, which I also did. I self-published. It was self-published. So I was at a show in Charlotte called Heroes Con, which is my favorite.
Oh, yeah. I've gone to that one before.
No offense to the other shows. They're all good. It's my favorite one. Heroes Con is like the family reunion I want to go to. All your peers are there every year, and it's great. And there's a place called Mertz there. It's a soul food restaurant down the street. And it's kind of a rite of passage is that if you go to Charlotte, you kind of have to go to Mertz. I mean, you just have to. It's so good. Some people will be like, it's not that good. It'd be like, okay, let's hate on it.
It's all the people that live there, or they're going to be the ones that's not that great.
No, it's always someone. It's always someone who wants to be cool. They don't like fried chicken.
It's all hype.
Yeah, it's not. It's good. Is it the best fried chicken you've ever had in your life? I don't know. I don't know your life. It's good. It's really good. It's really good. It's 3 blocks away. You know what I mean? You go to Mertz. And so the thing is with Mertz, though, is you can't go by yourself. Like, there's not takeout. It's a restaurant. It's a sit down,
Yeah.
And so sort of every year you're looking, like, you going to Mertz? Are you going to Mertz tonight? You going to Mertz? You're trying to find the people, you know what I mean? And this guy who sort of is the guy who discovered me at the time was writing for a major comics website. And he walked by and I'm like, oh, are you going to Mertz tonight? And he's like, yeah, but I'm like, no. Little field mouse. You won't even know I'm there. You won't even know Kyle's there. I'll be quiet. I just want my fried chicken. And so they're like, all right. So the but was that him and his podcast partner were going to be interviewing Chip Zdarsky and Matt Fraction. This was peak Sex Criminals. This was as hot as Sex Criminals ever been. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna eat the chicken. You won't know. Like, so he introduced me to Matt Fraction. Yeah, you won't know. He introduced me to Matt Fraction as he's like, this is Kyle Starks. He did the best book of the year, which was Sex Castle. And I was like, haha, that's nice. I'm pretty proud of that book. It's pretty good. And we went to this dinner. We didn't go to Mertz, which is probably so much of my career is fortuitous. We didn't go to Mertz because they were too busy, which is how it is. Listen, I could have told them that. It's Friday night. We went too late. Anyway, we went to this terrible pizza place, and the pizza place was so slow and so bad. Like, there was a lot of talking, and they started talking about newspapers. Zdarsky worked at newspapers for a long time, and I worked at newspapers for a long time. So I could kind of like, I wasn't going to say boo, but I interjected. Anyway, had a lovely time. There was a bunch of us too. There's probably like six, seven, I don't know, 6 people. Who knows? So the next day is Sunday, and I would never leave my table because you might miss a sale. And that to me is like, someone might miss the chance to read my book. And not that my book is going to change your life, but it's like, I made it to be read, which is all my books. They're made to be read. They're made to be consumed. And I would never leave my table. But Matt, who I know famously would kind of walk around and pick stuff up because he's sincerely a super nice guy and supporting the industry and people who are coming up. He didn't come around. I was like, I should probably leave the table. I'm like, you should just do this. You should go give someone your book. If they thought you wanted, okay, I'm going to do it. So I go over to their table. It's him, Kelly Sue, and Chip Zdarsky. The three of them, peak sex criminals. Literally, this line it's Sunday afternoon, and this line's like around the building.
Wow.
And I said, I go, I'm not going to wait in that line. Like, I'd rather be rude than wait in that line. I got to get back to my table. And so I kind of went to this and I'm like, oh, hey, Matt. And he's like, oh, hey. And I was like, you said you wanted my book, so I brought you my book. And he's like, yeah. He's like, how much is it? And I was like, what are you talking about?
But you
like,
nothing.
Yeah, I was like, dude, you want my book? Like, what do I care? And a moment happened, which is famous in my house. My wife loves this moment, is that Matt Fraction stood up and he pointed at me and he said, pros get paid. And he gave me $20 for my book. And I was like, hell yeah. I just made $20 off Matt Fraction. You can afford it.
You're like, I just conned him in front of
Yeah.
no, it's not con.
Yeah,
like, so that's such a cool moment though. Like
I thought that was a loss. I made $20. So it continues. So what happened is his plane didn't take off in time, and he started tweeting about Sex Castle. Now I'm far closer to where Matt Fraction was then than I was me then. And you get handed a lot of stuff. People give you a lot of stuff, and you pick stuff up. That just shows.
Yeah.
And I have to assume the plane didn't take off, and he's like, I'm gonna see what's in my bag. I can only assume this. And Sex Castle was in his bag, and he started tweeting about it. And I think I sold like 6 books. And I was like, thank you. Like, I'm like, dude, you just made me $120. Like, thank you so much. You know what I mean? And he says, yeah. He's like, do you want to talk to Image? And I was like, sure.
Of course, played it cool. Like,
I don't know. I'm like,
do
I? But I don't know any better. Like, I have a good union job. I'm working at a factory. Like, I don't know. I'm like, sure. And he wrote this really great, like, hey, I just read this book. It's great. I seem to remember he's like, the next 5 years of this guy are going to be great. And I'm like, this is so nice. And Eric Stevenson's reply was, great. Kyle, what do you want to do? Which also I didn't know how to answer, because I was like, put this book in stores? Like, I don't know what else. Like, I have this book. And that's what happened. The book got optioned before it came out. It got nominated for an Eisner. My first book got nominated for an Eisner. It's why I got Rick and Morty. And Rick and Morty happened right when I lost that factory job. And made my career like a series of fortuitous events. But that's my origin. Why do I like comic books? I don't know. I've always read them. And this is how, thanks to Matt Fraction, I think, it's so funny because I say stuff like, I'm like, oh, like I like him and the guy who sort of discovered me. Like, I'm like, oh, I owe a blood debt to these guys. Like, and I tell them every time, I'm like, like if you say it, if you say, let's go kill the president, today's the day I'm gonna go kill the president. And those dudes, to their credit, always say, if it wasn't good, it wouldn't matter. Like you don't have to keep thanking us, like, because it's good.
Right, you did the work.
And sure, yes. But man, there's so many good things that never get discovered. There's so many good things that never get whatever bump you need. So it's like I am in debt because it's a lot of good luck. Everything's like you have to do the work. But like if we talk like every story I have is like, why did you get that? And I'm like, it's a dumb story. It's like it's not. I got Peacemaker because I tweeted about it. Someone tweeted it and I retweeted it. Like that's it. Someone was like, why isn't Kyle Starks making a Peacemaker? And I was like, ha ha ha. I'm like, why aren't I? Call me. And someone called me in an hour. Like that's not how life works. It's not how it works. So there's a lot of just like good luck, but certainly, I like to think that the work is good. So the work in many ways speaks for me, but no one ever has to make those risks. You know what I mean? Like there's little things you never have to speak. You never have to vouch for somebody. Matt Fraction never had to do that. No one had to reply to a joke tweet. You know what I mean? There's like a series of those and you go, why make good work? I believe that. I do believe that. And so there will be rewards for making good work. And certainly if you make good work, people want you to make work for them. But again, you know what? I know a lot of bands that no one knows that I like a lot. You know what I mean? And they're gone. They didn't get their moment. And there's a lot of that in comics too. I can think of several writers that it just never hit when they needed it. Because probably they went all eggs in to try to make a living off it, which is really hard. So or it was just because they're so stressful because the industry is so stressful. I mean, I know a handful of writers that were great that just aren't around. They just quit doing it. It's like, well, why? Maybe the money was bad. I don't know. There's a lot of variables. And that's my origin story, as long-winded as it is.
No, that's like the most unique one that we've ever had. And it just shows that like life is all about like timing, right place, right time. And, when you come down to it, talk to your heroes. Because
and you did put yourself out there.
Yeah, you put yourself out there. Like
the most is like people are like, you should go to conventions. And I was like, why? It's like, I guess you could get a career out of it. I guess you could find something like you really like. But I was like, why would I? What's the point?
Go on a whim, and next thing you know, you're being like, oh, I'm going with Image, and then from there on, it just like
Crazy.
snowballs into big things now. Which now we're into Karate Prom, which is your latest, work of art.
Yeah.
And what can you tell us kind of about this? Because man, this was fun.
It was a lot of fun and hilarious.
Yeah,
the whole thing was laugh aloud funny.
Don the Dragon Wilson Jones, for example. Like, what can you tell us kind of about what the premise of Karate Prom is, and let's dive into it a little bit.
Here's what I love about Karate Prom is like, how much premise explanation do you think it needs?
You really don't. It's like,
you could do a one sentence.
There's karate.
Yeah.
Yes, if you could just put it in one sentence.
I'll tell you. So here's the deal with Karate Prom is over the pandemic, the lockout, 2020.
Yes.
I'm not going to shows. I was doing 2 or 3 shows. I think I did the year before. I did 32 shows of conventions, which was in stores and conventions. I made 32 appearances, and not having that sucks. And comics was sort of like, are we still shipping? It sucked. It sucked for me, and there was a lot of figuring out work, like how am I going to cover not having this convention? Anyway, neither here nor there. It was dark times for me. It was dark times. It sucked. It sucked for everybody.
But it affects people differently. Yeah, there's so much to it. Like people don't realize it affects the comic book industry just as much as anybody else does.
Yeah. It's tough because you don't know, are people going to buy comics anymore? Like, who knows? Anyway, so I thought we needed free comic book day. The lack of free comic book day, like something about free comic book day every year sort of like reinvigorates everyone who loves comics, and the stores are stoked for like a month and a half. You know what I mean? It's great. And so I was like, I'm going to make a comic. I'm going to draw a comic, which is how I started. Sex Castle, I wrote and drew. Killed Them All, Rock Candy Mountain, which is being recollected this year. Old Head, like I write and draw. That's how I started. And so I'm like, I'm going to do one. I'll just do like an 8-page, like just a freebie. I'm just going to give something away. So I was like, hey, tweet me titles for this free comic, and I'll let you guys vote, and I'll do whichever one wins. And so the winner was Karate Prom, obviously, because you can't top it. It's too good of a title.
Yeah.
And in fact, the colorist, who's like my best friend and who drew Mars Attacks and Six Psychics, Chris Reitzer, is the one who suggested it, which was even better because he's like Karate Prom. And so I drew I think a 36-page comic in 10 days because I got very excited about this idea, and it's not much different. The first chapter, it's like kind of a 3-part book. The first chapter is still pretty much what I drew in 10 days because I was so excited about it. And I just fell in love with, basically the idea is these kids go to prom and they upset the bully, and he hires a bunch of hitmen to try to take them out of prom. And, as one does, and they overcome, and then it's karate after party, and then it's karate graduation, and sort of the 80s kung fu hijinks. It's an 80s vibe. It's definitely not set in the 80s, but I think that sort of vibe is gone.
I agree.
So I did that 32. I can't remember. It was too many. I was obsessed, and it saved my life because I was like, oh yeah, I love writing and drawing. I love when I do both. It makes me so happy. It brings me so much joy. And I love these kids so much. I love Sam and Don so much. I did 2 more parts, and I didn't release them. I didn't put them pay what you want like I did for the first one because I was like, I'm gonna do something with them. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna figure it out. If worst case scenario, I'll kickstart it because that's what I did for Sex Castle. That's what I did for Kill Them All. That's what I did for Old Head, and sort of doing a Kickstarter and then having Image put it out, or for Kill Them All, Boom Oni put it out. That works for me. I like that. I love Kickstarter. I love how interactive it is, and I just like it being. I love it being a thing. Like here's this sort of bespoke thing for everyone, and then it becomes.
The fans kind of feel like they get involved along the way.
I love it.
Processes and stuff like that. Yeah.
But then I like that it's in stores. You know what I mean? I like that there's a catalog and it's in stores and all that. I was like, I'll just do that, even though it's kind of a teen book, kind of like a kid's book.
I feel like it's an all ages book though, because I really enjoyed like the innocence of the kids. Like there were certain things that they're like, just chaste events go on at post prom party, and of course I start to think about my prom and so it's almost like Bluey, where there's jokes for the older crowd and jokes that for the younger kids.
It's definitely the first all ages at all thing because there's profanity and all the other stuff. It is full of curses and adult situations, and this is not. So it's nice for me to have something like when someone comes up to the table 16 or younger, I go, oh, I have something for you finally. Like, don't let them take that. That's me going slapping their hands. You don't want that kid to
Right.
They're growing to grab
No.
Rick and Morty. Like,
No,
no,
there's
not so much.
there's butt jokes and all
Do
those.
you like karate though?
Are you interested in prom and or karate?
You
So
don't
yeah,
need
so
to be
that's just a
interested in either of them though to enjoy this. Like it's truly like you're enjoying the
like either.
situation of it. It's almost like Cobra Kai. I got Cobra Kai meets Scott Pilgrim kind
I
of
would
vibe.
think that's Scott Pilgrim.
Hey,
Yes.
I think you know what I think that's a pull on it. I think someone said that. I think that was one of the solicitations said Cobra Kai meets Scott Pilgrim. Listen, I'll take it. I'll give it to me.
That's high praise. Yeah, I mean,
suck it up. Give it to me.
Now, I did notice before you go into the comic, you actually give, a nod to your wife and your daughters. And obviously,
Yeah.
Sam is this very badass, independent character.
Oh no.
So did you create her as inspiration from your daughters, or were you hoping she would inspire your daughters? You said no.
Dude, listen, my youngest turns 14 next week. My oldest just turned 16 in February. I love them very much. They would not be a protagonist. They would not be a protagonist in an action story. They don't have that. But I think, I do think sometimes I say stuff without thinking, but I do think, especially as of late, when you write a female character, you go, I hope this is something, you know what I mean? That would, if I die today, let's talk about this dark timeline. That if my kids, because they haven't read any of my books. I think my oldest daughter has read Six Sidekicks, and the reason why is that they're not appropriate.
Right.
And I'm kind of a prude. I'm a little bit of a prude. I'm just because there's a lot of sex jokes and there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of. But my wife always sees like, when are you going to make a book that the girls can read? And I was like, I guess when they're 18, they'll have like a ton of books to read.
What do you mean? I already did this. If you get older, like.
Yeah. I hope that they see these characters, these guys, and I'd say Gabby and Trudy, and I hate this place. I think there are admirable female characters, and I think that's important to have that representation.
Mhm.
It is, I'll say straight out, like it's hard to write female characters, and as a dad of teenage daughters, I'm now more aware of how complicated that existence is. That I was like, I don't know if I could even try. You know what I mean? But certainly Sam has like 80s action lead. You know what I mean? Like she's super confident.
Yes.
She's super fearless. And I think that's just good. That's just writing good. And I don't mean writing well. I mean, that's just writing good characters. Like Don tries
so hard.
But like Sam is good. You know what I mean? She has the confidence of good. I have a character in Six Sidekicks. Six Sidekicks of Ricky Keaton, the only female Six Sidekick. And her whole thing was that's a book about the worst man in Hollywood dies and all of his traumatized sort of sidekicks team up. But they're all kung fu. It's a kung fu thing, right? And his thing, the bad guy, Trigger Keaton's thing was he was so good at fighting, he had no fears, and so he would say what he wanted, do what he wanted, and he was the sort of the worst version of humanity. And this girl, who's one of the Six Sidekicks, her thing is the same. She's so good at fighting, she has no fears, but because of that, she's just going through life sort of like happy as can be. And I love that too, right? I love sort of the freedom of confidence. So I hope that's something to be taken from like everybody. I hope that's fingers crossed, but no, my daughter.
No,
are you kidding me?
I fell in love with Sam right away. I have a 20-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old daughter, and my 11-year-old daughter would start a war. My 20-year-old daughter would just keep out of it. So I get that having the
my
kids
5-year-old daughter is a fighter already. So yes, I was seeing some of like no backing down whatsoever. I was like, yeah, that sounds like something my daughter could do.
But people who don't have daughters sometimes think that daughters are just these precious little girls that just have tea parties, and no, they're out of control as well.
Yeah,
they're all very different. But I fell in love with Sam right away because you could tell she'd been giving up with been dealing with crap from the boys all the time because she's into karate and she's a girl and she's just so over it. And then she meets a guy who's genuinely viewing her as an equal. And he has two like best friends that were like Ned from Spider-Man that were so non-toxic and so supportive. So I just like fell in love with all of these characters right away.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
So, and also, you keep saying 80s, but that ending, and I'm not going to say what the ending is because I highly recommend people go read this because it's just nonstop fun from beginning to end. It was a very 90s-esque kind of age kind of ending where you wrapped up and what you did with the characters at the very end.
Where are they now? We can say
yes.
I love a Where Are They Now so much.
I do too. So whenever like we got to that, like there was this, and these two were married, and these two, he went to MIT, like Punchman went to MIT, and I'm just like, what? This is amazing.
That was hilarious. That was yeah. And when you meet Punchman, you'll be like, oh, that's extra hilarious. It's almost like in Supernatural with the one guy. They're like, you know what MIT is? And he's like, yeah, he had gone to MIT and they thought he was a complete dumbass because he had a mullet.
Well, it's like Dolph Lundgren, right? Like a big action hero. He's a rocket scientist. So it's just anytime there's like some big muscular dude, you always automatically roll them out from being, no, there's no way they can go. So when it's like, he went to MIT and became like a millionaire. And it's like, yes, I love it so much. Like the characters all together were just amazing. And Don right off the bat, like there is an air of innocence about everybody. And Sam very much like takes him through, I don't want to say life, but like kind of in a way that starts off with her kicking him and beating him. She's like, why did you let me win? And he's like, I didn't. I just found you so beautiful, which like every teenage boy could probably really relate to, right? Or even teenage girl. Like we could all relate to this. You know, you're just so attractive. Like brain functions cease to exist.
Yeah, we love it. That's true, though.
It really is.
So obviously, you know, you wrap this up with a nice, pretty bow at the end. But do you see doing any kind of spinoffs or anything from Karate Prom, or do you feel like you told everything there was from beginning to end, and you're happy with the story?
I'm a big fan of stories that have beginning, middles, and ends. I think that's the most satisfying way to consume a story for me. And like I said, I try to always make the thing that I sort of wish existed in the world. So it's one of those things I know so when it ended up going to what we call book market, like comics are direct marketed and book markets, you know, is that there was certainly like, oh, well, book market wants to do like series. And it's like, I'm like, who cares? Like, this is the best story, but it's kind of true for everything I've done. Is Sex Castle, people would be like, when was there going to be another Sex Castle? And I'm like, I kind of did it, you know? The Skybound books both have like volume 1, Assassination and Six Psychics both have ones on them. It's like, I kind of did it. Would I do them again? I mean, if they made a movie, I'd do it again. But it's like, I kind of feel like I told the best story. And I also think because I like that Where Are They Now at the end, it puts, as you said, it puts a nice bow on their lives. And there's a reference. It's like, is there obviously other situations where they were involved in similar events? For sure. I don't think they'd be as interesting as this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So am I opposed to it? No. Do I have any plans to? Absolutely not. Like I have no plans to. I'm really proud of this book. I'm proud of the story it tells. I think ongoing long form stuff it's a hard talent to have. I like stakes and I like payoffs and I like to have that sort of, you know, satisfying ending.
In the conclusion, yeah.
Yeah.
I love
a conclusion. Yeah.
You started this book, obviously you started drawing, you just kind of took off. At what point did you decide, no, there's so much more? Because in the first arc, if we want to call it an arc chapter,
yeah, sure, yeah.
Luke is the antagonist. You know, Luke is the now ex-boyfriend. Don and Sam go to prom together. Luke puts the hit out, and it's this whole thing goes crazy. Like Punchman is beating. He's just like, Don's basically like, dude, your fists, like, are they broken yet? Like, I'll just pay you $20 or whatever it is. And there's other people they're fighting. Sam's kicking everybody's ass, and then Don's paying off or fighting his own, and then Luke kind of at that point gets defeated, and that wraps up his arc. At what point did it evolve from Luke to then we get Don's ex-girlfriend shows up, and then the whole crime family decides to show up?
Yeah, but I think again, you know, it was just such. I at the time I was just so in it. It's tough for me to be like, what was the thought processes? Because there's certain things that to me it seems obvious. It's like, well, what would be the problem for both Don? Like they just fought a bunch of hitmen. Mm-hmm. What's the next big? What would be the next problem for them? And it's like, oh, it's someone's ex, or it's a triangle of some kind. And we introduced Aster, Violinzia. I don't know their names. I haven't read the book in a while, but I think that's right. Violinzia, which is like violence. It's just Aster violence. But I was like, what if she was like just super? Like, there's things you, like as you're writing, like, oh, the bit where he's like, oh, why did you break up with her? Because Don broke up with her. It's like, why? Yes. Because she moved away or she was graduating. He's like, no, because she was evil. And like just being that, then it's like, oh, now it's like the whole thing's wide open to me. Like, what is the story? And it's like, oh, there's a brother who's, because you want to basically the 3 parts is that the challenge is bigger each time. Mm-hmm. Luke is your classic blonde, snowy mountain, bully. Yeah. And he knows how to fight too. Of course he does. So it's like you have to one up him. It's like, well, now you have like someone who's truly evil, who's fully evil, and can fight better than Sam. It's like, well, that's huge. And then the third one, you know, you bring in her brother who's been running a ninja crime family for the last 4 years. So it's about Italy, escalation, you know. Yeah. It's about the Italian ninjas. So it's about escalation. But I think it's like, well, what comes after prom? After prom, it's like, well, what can happen after prom? It's like someone else has to show up. Otherwise, you're just rehashing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like Luke's story through the whole thing, because he goes from sort of bully to then like shamed bully to like pathetic weakling. I just think everyone has an arc. Everyone has a little arc that I like.
They do, yeah.
And like I like that there's no wasted characters. Even early on, Luke and Gail, who's sort of supposed to be Sam's antagonist, but she's really just kind of smarmy. Like they have like 2 henchmen, and I think even the henchmen kind of get a little arc. You don't find out their names till volume 3 or till the third section of the book, and I think that's funny. And you go, oh, they're real people too. Like everyone's a real person. I like that. I like it. I did this book, like I said, I did it 4 years ago. Is that right? 3 years ago, and I worked on it at this point 6 months ago. The final, because we stretched it. It was a year ago almost at this point. So I hadn't read it since I sort of sent in final art. You know what I mean? And so I read it when I got the comps. They look great, by the way. Look at hardcover.
Yeah, Daddy's second.
I love that it's like a hardcover. Yeah.
And it's got like it's got spot gloss on their little eyes, and anyway. And so I read it again, and it's like there's nothing better to me than it does that thing which I said, which I read it, I got to the end, I read the last page, and I'm like, that's just what I wanted. It's just what I wanted it to be. That's the story that I want to consume. I love how the characters have arcs. I love how people grow and they change, and yet they kind of stay true to themselves. Like I love that. And it's great action. Like there's tons of cool fights in it. There's tons of cool characters.
There's a lot of good humor too. Like Gail, for example, Sam was like, fight me. Gail was like, no, like Gail, don't fight me. She was like, I'm gonna attack you through social media and like making up rumors. I like that is for a high school girl, like that's extremely clever.
Right. And I'm sure that's spot on these days.
Sam has an excellent, because she's like, you can't beat up the internet, and she's like, I can break your fingers. Like, Sam's like the thing is like Sam in so many ways is so indomitable, which I love. But she's not. But she's also like, she has like a soft, like, you know, like her feelings get hurt, but she's so headstrong and so confident. And even she has her ups and downs. She has that confidence tested, and she has to make a hard choice in volume, going into volume 3 that she thinks is the right choice, and honestly probably was. And it's tough, it's tough to look at romances from like all the angles. Like everyone she was probably right, even though we know their destiny is too great. That why would anything ever bad happen to either one of them? But yeah, I love, man. Yeah. I'm really pleased. That's the thing is like, I did that first thing. I was like, man, I'm not done with these characters. And so that sort of is an answer to what you said earlier. Is like, it was just going to be those 32 pages. I couldn't live with it. It wasn't right. And then it's how does that become 3-part stories? So sometimes there's more. And in this case, Karate Prom was that, but it ended up just being a regular sized book,
Well, you got to think too, like it made sense from a natural evolution standpoint, because what happens after prom is the after party. And then so Don and Sam were going to go upstairs and they're going to start like kissing away and stuff. And then Don was like, no, he went and runs away and finds his friends. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? Like any friend would do, like, what are you doing?
Shenanigans.
Kissing shenanigans. He's like, she's taking a shower. What are you doing down here?
You have a naked girl upstairs. Why are you down here like playing Nintendo or whatever? What are we doing, man?
But I love, you avoided some of the tropes. Like you said, every character has an arc, so there's no cannon fodder. And my biggest issue in anything is when there's like somebody misconstrued something like, oh, she's not really evil. She's actually, still in love with my boyfriend and my boyfriend's in love with her. And like, you didn't get that nonsense. That is like my least favorite trope in anything where it's the miscommunication. But, these characters, like this story is silly and it's funny and it's Karate Prom, but the characters, like you were talking about them, they all still have real issues and they're all relatable, even though they're teenagers fighting assassins with karate at prom.
We love it.
Taking on a crime family from Italy, man. Like,
I mean, it puts my prom to shame.
Mine was very boring. We just didn't really dance, and then we went home and had a party afterwards. But again, like, it is a coming of age story, so I feel like a lot of, especially my son is almost 9. He's been learning to read or getting better at reading through comic books, and so I feel like at his age he can see a lot of it because he's also in karate right now. So he can see some of that. This is a book I'm going to buy for him, for example, because it's something he can read. And then as you grow up and go through these life, it's very much like, this is life happens. Your first big breakup. I mean, Don and Sam break up at a point, and Don is very,
I hope it works out.
I hope.
This should be a book you read to your kids before they go to prom about the dangers of the after party.
Yeah. They say you go, instead of fighting, you can get pregnant.
Right.
Do
You
not go
never
to the
know what
prom
could
after party.
happen.
There are ninjas or worse.
He's gonna get
Right.
pregnant.
I,
Yeah.
you know,
I
but
it's interesting what it'll be interesting what if people younger than sort of teen, because I don't think teenagers read comic books. You know, I don't think we're like, I wish there was a prom comic book. Like this would probably be like, I think like 13, 14, 15, right?
Yeah.
Probably. Or my fans who are, old men. But I'm interested in what sort of that like 17, 18 will actually how they will respond to it, because it's a little like it's almost a little tame at that age as a book, but it's like it's fun. Like don't you guys like having fun? Do you
Yeah,
want to have
like,
fun?
don't you kids want to have fun? Like, get out there, man.
Come
This is what it's
on.
all about. Don't you? We all, like, even as grown men or women, so how many times have we fantasized about, like, oh, if somebody comes in here right now, I'm going to take them all down and, like, Terminator style. I'm like,
Oh
I'm
my God,
Batman
that's
or
my
something like that.
husband.
Like,
Josh is
come
certain
on.
he's still ready to take on anyone. I'll fight anyone today. I'm like,
I could
that's
take
stupid.
on
You're gonna end up in
anybody.
jail. You're not fighting anybody. Let's go.
Mhm.
And, funny
Yeah.
enough, I read this at a good
And he
time
took
because my
karate.
son has a school dance coming up that he's going to with one of his friends. And she's excited. She drug him to this. So I'm like, I'm going to go chaperone this, and there's going to be ninjas popping up. And now, guess what? I'm going to know how to fight all the ninjas. And I'm going to have my own karate gala, if you will. And it's just,
I
comic
just
books
to
are
be like
fun.
a brother. I want to learn that skill so I can just avoid conflict, kind of.
But yeah, this comic book is fun, man. I think what you do very well in all of your comic books are you just remind us of that. And not everything has to be serious. Not everything has to be life threatening or world
Well, this
ending.
was life threatening.
Okay. To the point,
They're all right.
he loses both the ability to use both his arms. That's okay. He gets it back. It's fine.
He gets
But
hurt. Don gets hurt a lot.
he does. Poor Don takes
Yeah.
a beating, and
That's his whole
what
thing,
makes,
though.
He keeps on
Don's whole
going.
thing. Sam is unbeatable, and Don doesn't give up. That's their two characteristics. So
exactly.
things that I love. I love when someone won't give up. I love it when someone never gives up. And I think for high school, I think that's an important, like, in the end, there's a big speech. She, like, Gail gives a graduation speech that I think sort of sums up, I think, the book sort of how it would speak to someone in high school. But I think like not giving up. Like, I think that's like as you said, you try to write things that I'm not at any point going, man, I hope I can show someone a way to be. But it's like, I love characters that don't give up because I don't want to give up. I think no one should ever give up. So I like having that. I like having someone. I also like, I am an unearned confidence man for sure. So it's like Sam's an unearned confidence woman. These are just things that I like. They're things that I like to see. And, everything's sort of a part of yourself.
Did
I don't
you
know,
have a
White
favorite
all pretty good
character?
there.
Did you have a favorite character that you
in
wrote
this
within?
book?
Yes.
In this book, I mean, I really love Don and Sam, but I think Punchman is going to be the breakout character. I think from Karate Prom. I think Punchman's hilarious. I know my agent read it and he's like, Punchman, right? And I'm like, of course. Why wouldn't it be? And I get that. I think Punchman has a great arc. I think everyone has a great arc, and I think that's important there's something about that, like what I liked for sort of like when I was like Goonies, like.
Yes.
I love Goonies. Goonies does the same thing. Every character gets an arc. And I love that. I love that they went on this ridiculous adventure. I love that they grow together because of it, and that every single character has an arc. And like I said, you try to make the things that you want to exist in the world. I can't say enough. I'm so pleased with it. Like every time I think about it, it's so nice. Like, yeah, they're great. All those people are great. They're all great in here. I love it. But I do think I think comics should be fun, and that goes back to what I was saying when I was in the '90s. They weren't like there's 2 or 3 guys. There's 2 or 3 books. There's Hitman, Justice League. There's Kurt Busiek. They weren't fun. It was like dark and gritty, and there's something to be said. Yada yada yada. The repercussions of Watchmen, like people took the wrong lessons or whatever. Yeah. It wasn't fun. Like it just simply wasn't fun. There were exceptions to that, but I think it was another 5 years before people were like, oh, we can make whatever we want. And I think that had whatever sort of trauma it had on me, where like comics should be fun, which doesn't mean they need to be funny. It doesn't mean they need to be silly, but I do think even if I do a horror book, which I've done, I want people to like that was a good ride. Like, because that's the horror movies I like. The horror movies I like, you go,
well, horror movies can have comedy
scary
in them as well. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you need comedy. Like, I don't think they need to be comedy. I just think they need to be fun, and that doesn't mean it's not serious. It doesn't make you cry. I definitely tried to make people cry several times this year successfully, I think. With Marvel Unleashed and Peacemaker and Rock Candy Mountain. A lot of people tell me the ending gets them in Rock Candy Mountain, which we love to hear. So it's like there's all these feelings, and I don't think anything should be one thing. I think I lean towards humor because it's just who I am, right? But I think you can like I just read I just reread Darwin Cook's Parker. Like that's not a funny. That's a fun book, and I think like that's a fun book. And I think like that's what I endeavor for is like I want it to be fun. That doesn't mean it's funny. That doesn't mean it makes you laugh. It just means you had a good time. The ride was like I'm glad I was on the roller coaster, and that doesn't again that could mean like it could be tragic. Like I can think of several films that are super depressing, but I'm like I love going down this ride, you know. So yeah, I just think this should be fun. I think this is a really good one. I think I really did it this time. Success. I achieved my goal. Success.
I would definitely say you did too. I know myself and Lauren, we loved this a bunch. So why don't you go ahead and let people know, like, obviously it's coming out May 7th. How can people get their hands on this book?
Well, it's my first book market book, so I don't definitely know. I know you can pre-order. It's first second, so I know you can pre-order in a comic shop. I don't know how bookstores work. It's my first time. I assume you go to a bookstore and say, "Can I get this book when it comes out?" And they hold it. I don't know. I don't know what bookstores do. I've never pre-ordered a book at a bookstore.
I've pre-ordered many a Rick Riordan for my oldest, and that's usually what it is. They just hold it for you.
There you go.
There you go.
So either one. I'm really excited to have something. It's a different world in many ways. Like it's me doing the thing that I've always done, and honestly, it's not even any different. We just took out some curse words. You know what I mean? Like there's maybe some like adult sex jokes that didn't get in because it wasn't the time or place.
Right.
All my other, I mean, like, listen, like read any of these. It's just full of, I'm an adult man and I'm making books that I want to exist. They're going to be kind of grody and kind of dumb and kind of violent. So it's not as violent, right? I mean, like, it's not viscerally violent, but it is violent. And so it's really just the same thing I've always made. It's just that we kind of filed off the sort of more offensive parts, which is fine. Like, who needs those? But it's my first time doing something that, you know, a 10-year-old could read. Like, a 10-year-old could read. They could not read any of my other books. There's not a single one. And I said, I'm a prude. I won't, my 14-year-old doesn't need to read the books. And they're not even that bad. It's mostly innuendo. Like, I don't even do anything bad. I'm just like, they can wait. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to see R-rated movies. You can wait, though they have.
Right. I mean, you'll get there eventually. My 11-year-old keeps trying to watch Deadpool. I'm like, no, you
Deadpool,
can wait.
Like, yeah, Deadpool,
too far.
You go, oh, they could have watched Gremlins. I don't know Gremlins. I think it's rated PG-13 or whatever. You go, yeah, you'd probably be okay.
But you have to have the Santa talk first because we had that issue. My daughter wanted to watch Gremlins.
Yes. And it's scary. That movie is scary, but it's like there's certain things. But and my stuff would be honestly like now that they're old, it's like this is fine. They see worse so much, but I'm kind of a prude. So it's nice that there's this thing that anyone can read. Anyone can read. My mom could read. My mom's not reading my stuff either. She's like, tell me about you. I'm like, you don't need to worry about it.
My mom doesn't listen about it.
Dude, you're fine. My mom, someone asked her, she's like, she was at some like luncheon and this girl was like, oh, my husband reads comics. What has your son done? And she's like, I don't, he doesn't tell me about it. Like, I'm like, she doesn't need to know. It used to be, she'd be like, I want to get copies of your books to give to like my friends I worked with. I'm like, you want to take copies of Sex Castle to the lady who runs the cashier? Like, are you crazy? You're out of your. You want to Kill Them All? Like, what is wrong with you? Like,
hey, you don't know what they do when they're home alone. They might love it.
They might. It's one of the things that's like, it's like I'm like, you know, when you make stories, you want recognition for your. People have different creative motivations, but mine is like, I want to be credited as having made something good. That's it, right? And so for my mom just being like, just wants to buy it, like that's ick. It's an ick to me.
Yeah.
Like no, don't do that. Like, someone says,
well, it's like my mom's. Yeah.
If you're out and they're like, you know what? I love 80s action movies so and like, oh, my son made this book called Sex Castle. Or like, you know, I love a good silly Hollywood mystery. Like, oh, Six Sidekicks of Trigger Key. Like there's a thing that I'm stoked about. Like I love it. So yeah, my mom could in theory read Karate Prom if you want. I won't allow it. She's gonna die having never read my books at this point. Kind of okay. So that's weird, but also in the same way, like I've never dealt with bookstores. I've never dealt with a bookstore. I've never I'm trying to set up like a tour. I don't know how. It's rough. It's so rare. Because in comics, I'd be like, here's the shops. I'll call these shops. I'll tell them what I'll do. I'll tell them what I offer. I'll tell them what the deal is. It's like bookstores, like, do they want me? Like, I don't know. Like, what value is it? I don't know. But I know teenagers aren't going to comic shops. They're going into bookstores. And like, that's
a lot of people are going to like Barnes and Noble and stuff right now.
I mean, I love Barnes and Noble. And Barnes and Noble does like events for book releases and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I go to both Barnes and Noble and comic book shops. So
my local Barnes and Noble has like a local author section, and your boy's not in it.
Oh my!
It's
gosh.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
I think that's every bookstore. Anyways, dude, I did Rick and Morty for 5 years. They have all those books. They have Peacemaker, and like You guys know? No one cares.
Hey,
That's fine.
I live 10 minutes away. You guys wanna? I'm just gonna. You just like one day go in there and slowly start transferring over to
no, but I do take everything. I do put it out face first. If I'm at Barnes Noble, I'll take it. I mean, well, the Karate Prom is also like, will this be at Myers? You know what I mean? Is there a chance that Karate Prom's at Target?
There,
I don't know.
actually, probably.
You never know. Target gets all. I mean, I've seen random comics at Target lately, so
I'll
feel like
I'll lose my mind.
But like comics are becoming more mainstream, and so I wouldn't.
I'm going to Target May 7th, I think, and I'm gonna see if it's out there. I'm gonna search all the. I have a couple in my area. I've got like the WalMarts. You know, I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia, which I feel like is a pretty populated area. I feel like if I'm gonna find it, it's gonna be in this area, and I'm gonna find it. That's my mission.
I think I'd lose my mind. I hope it happens. I don't know if they do that. I know they have stuff. I know
it's still gonna be though. Like, can you still find it at your local comic book shop though?
You always be able to order it. It's First Second, but it's also Macmillan. First Second, of course, is famously comic publisher. So yeah, you can get it anywhere. I mean, you should be able to ask for it at any place that has books, unless those books are like adult bookstore, and then they won't.
Yeah, unless you're at like the Lions on the side of the highway.
Yeah. Unless you have to walk through beads to get to
the books. They listen. I don't know who they use for ordering. They might still be able to get it.
Stop off at the truck stop and there's Karate Prom. Like, wait a second, one of these is not like the other.
Take a picture. Send it to me. I'll lose my mind.
Lauren, when you're driving up to the Poconos, go ahead and let us know. Kyle, thank you for hanging out with us, man. Obviously KyleStarks.com, but do you have any upcoming conventions the rest of the year that you're planning on going to? Where can people kind of find you at?
What am I doing this year? I'm doing Heroes. I always do Heroes. I'm doing Memphis. I love Memphis. That's a great show. It's on my site. I have appearances. I don't know. Some of that stuff changes. I'm doing less shows this year just because I am. I've earned it.
Because you can. And
they're fun, but they're exhausting.
I you know what? I love them though. I love the travel. I love being able to talk shop because my wife does not. These people don't care. All right. I can't
have this podcast.
Yeah. I can't be like, I'd be like, man, you know what? I really want to talk about this thing I saw. I want to talk about the industry. This new thing. Why is this guy starting this thing? And they're like, I don't know. They say the same thing back to me that I say to them. They're like, I don't know. You're right. And I'm like, I want to talk about it. So I love conventions. It's also like, it's when people show up at convention, especially now that conventions are less comic book conventions. I mean, Heroes is an exception. Yeah. Oh, I'm doing TriviaCon. TriviaCon's supposed to be very.
Oh yes, TriviaCon up there in Connecticut. Yes.
I'm doing Huntington. Always do Huntington. That's a real little show, but those are they're pop culture shows. And but the thing about those shows is like that's where you get like sort of real reactions to the work. You know what I mean? Like people might say good job on Twitter, but it's those places where people go, oh, they'll see where Monsters Lie. Like, oh, I love that. I love Pine and Merrimack, which is my book that's out now from Boom. Our Rocky Mountain we're recollecting for the summer also. I have a bunch of stuff coming out this summer. It's gonna be a very busy summer for me. That's where you get like so I like that. I like having those engagements where people are like, I read your thing and I like your thing. And that only happens in person. You know what I mean? It only happens. Free Comic Book Day is coming up. I'm in St. Louis.
Oh, nice.
We love that. St. Louis is great. It's a good comic city. So yeah, shows are great. I don't think they're exhausting, and the travel is sometimes, and there are long days. But I'm six. This is from a place of privilege. Remember I said I used to never leave my table, and now I'm like, I'll leave my table. Who cares? It's like, who cares? Like sometimes you just got to get away from it, and it's
good because then people walk by and like, oh, he's not here right now. So then you start to build up a line when you are.
It's like demand. You create
demand. They go. Well, I guess we won't bother with that one. Is what they say as they walk by, and I go, oh, I'm running back from the bathroom, drying my hands.
Like, I'm right here.
I got stickers. Get some stickers. Do you like action movies? So yeah, I do I'm just doing less this year. In New York Comic, like normally I do like C2E2 in New York Comic Con. I got COVID at New York Comic Con, so I'm like in no hurry to go.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't go to that, but I feel like the few days after New York Comic Con, every comic book creator is like
everybody we knew.
Yeah. It was a high number. It was a 9 out of 10 probably, and I was like, man, so the big ones are they're scary to me this year. But next year, hopefully.
I don't blame you.
The people will be like, you have to be there. You have to be there. That's what you want. You want them to be like, oh, you have to come there. Like,
yes.
Well, of course I will. Please, if you need me that badly, how can I let you down? How could I possibly deny you this? I have an appearance at KyleStarks.com. It has my appearances on there. It has a store. It doesn't have everything. Get it from your comic shop. Don't get it from me. I don't want you to get it from me. I want you to get it from your comic shop. So if you want to read Where Monsters Lie, I have some stuff on there because I have it. You know what I mean? I have a sticker club every month where for $5 I do 2 stickers of whatever I want, not what you want. It's weird.
Awesome.
It's been going on. I started that before the pandemic, so we've been doing that for like 4 years now. It's crazy. But if you want to do that, do it through my Patreon. My Patreon's better. You get more engagement with me. We do polls to let people sort of vote on what the stickers will be sometimes, and that's fun. I got a lot of stuff, man. I make a lot of comics. Three Eisner nominees. I'm doing okay.
You know, I'd say you're doing just great. Just kind of just great there. You know, you're awesome, and you know, thank you so much for coming and hang out with us again, man.
Hey,
Seriously,
I can't. Thanks for reading my book, man. Like that's what it's all about. Like it's literally what it's all about, and that's all you can hope for. All you can hope for is the 2 things: 1, that someone will read it, and 2, they like it and they'll tell somebody. Like, and that's what this is right now. Obviously, like that's what this is, and for us, especially in 2024, with the comic sort of environment being the way it is, like this is priceless. Like we need word of mouth. We need to be finding new people who just found out about comics. It's like I don't want them to just come to me. There's so many good stuff for them to read, but it's like it's good for someone to go, oh, this sounds interesting. I'm going to try it out, and they won't do that by me because they think I'm lying. They think I'm like he has to. Of course,
he wrote this. He drew it. Of course, he is. Yeah.
I mean. I'm objective about my work though, and it's very good. It's top. They're all good. I could do bottom 5 better than I could do top 5. I've been pretty good. If you like one of my books, you're like all my books too, which I think is not necessarily true of everybody, but I think it's true of me. And I'm just rambling at this point, guys. At this point, I'm just
you're good. Rambling. I think you know what, guys. If you don't actually go out and buy this comic book, I believe it or not, a group of ninjas and hitmen will come swoop down and they will beat you until you buy it. I had actually heard that. You heard it here first. Just saying, don't let that be you. Pick this up.
Start hearing everybody was kung fu fighting. Better get to your local comic book shop.
Watch out. Prom season is upon us, folks.
Oh, it is. Is that strategically released? Did you intentionally do that to release around prom season?
I think prom season is like right now.
Yeah.
It comes out 2 months from now. I wish they would have. I mean, here's the thing: no one's smart in any graphic novel publishing field. Like, no one's gonna go. You know what we should do is do it a month before prom, and maybe people will buy it as gifts for their prom date. Like, I'm like,
who needs a corsage? I'd rather.
No, you get both.
Like, you know what? Your after prom party better be you all reading Karate Prom.
Are you just like it just gets you hyped up? It's a month before prom. Like it gets you hyped about prom. Someone's gonna do some meme thing. I don't know.
I like when he was. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. What was he? Don was doing what? I like it too.
No, I loved when Don was surprised when she said she spent $150 on her dress. Like my dress was more than that back in 2001 when I went to prom. So
yeah,
like,
no, Gail
that much?
Gail's like, you spent 150 because Gail's spending money. But I think like something in storytelling, something I like is when things aren't spelled out to you, when they're not like spelled out to you. And I'll pull back thing. Sam says earlier that they're new in town because her mom's a teacher at the high school. Like they don't have money. She's clearly she doesn't say my parents. Well, her dad's there. We never see like. But I don't think that they're well to do. I think the characters who are well to do, it's obvious who they are, and that's not a class thing. That's just kind of a classic 80s. Like Luke is rich. The bad guy, his dad owns a shoe store. All right, he's doing great. Gail, I think, is probably doing okay. And those are probably the 2 wealthiest people besides like General Poe, who of course is probably very well to do, but needs the money for vacation. He's trying to get a side hustle to go on vacation. So I think the thing is like I think $150 is a bunch to Sam. I think it's a bunch of money to her. So that's like I think also her response to Gail in that is something like she's like, Gail, I'd rather have a scuba full of farts than deal with you right now. And like that line's so funny to me. Like I forgot I wrote it. It's one of the things like you forget. I'm like, dude, a scuba full of farts is so funny.
I lost my mind at that because more than 1 year, my grandfather passed me 5 years ago now, but he used to send the best birthday cards every year. And 2 times he sent there's 2 guaranteed things. Like 1, you're a great person, and 2, never fart in a wetsuit. And it was a guy with just a wetsuit.
That's so funny.
So I went right back to that card and so I laughed a little extra for that part. I actually wrote it in my notes.
Hey,
scuba filled with farts.
It's so funny. Whenever I do this thing, especially when I'm tangenting again. You can be like, we gotta go. Is that whenever I write and draw something, I don't script it. I don't like to do things twice. I like to think about it a lot. And one of the things that it gives me space, especially with stuff like this, there's no page count. There's no 20-page count like monthly comics have, right? So it gives me room for fights and jokes to sort of be able to improvise a little bit. It gives me room to just throw in things like that. And so a lot of the time I go when I'm like, okay, here's sort of the end of the scene, right? This fight's about to begin, and Gail and Sam are the bookend to be like, oh, well, here's the thing they have to say. Gail's a bad guy. And it's like, oh, I could do a joke here. And I go, well, what's funny? Like, what's funny to me right now? You know what I mean? And so a lot of that's very stream of consciousness and is sort of improvisy. And so when I read things later, when I'm far enough away, I forget things that I wrote. And I'm like, oh, like good. Because I made it for me. I made Scuba.
Right. Everybody's
so funny.
Best target market. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's one of the bits that's really.
You have to write for yourself, though. I mean, that's like you got to take care of yourself first, and then the rest will follow.
I think this is a whole lot. I think some people do not. They should not be writing for themselves. But I think you always sort of. I think art is the artist for sure. I think that's unavoidable unless you're doing your art as maybe documentary filmmaking, right, or something like that. So you're always going to be in it. These characters, I said, Dawn is the part of me that doesn't give up, and Sam's the part of me that has unearned confidence. So Sam has earned confidence. She's super badass. But even the smaller characters, like everything is kind of a little part of you. Art is something that you've seen in your life. So it is me. It's always me. But and these books that I write and draw are different, especially when I get the name from Twitter and I'm going to do it in 10 days. The expectations are low. The burden is low, right? So it's kind of like dancing in the dark, which is to me very much how I started, which is that I'm just going to make this thing. The other stuff, you have to think of your audience. You have to consider that there are people that are not you reading it, and you want to find the bit. And it's easier to do with, I'll tell you, it's a trick. For horror and comedy, they're the same, so it's a trick. Is you do the thing that's you do the thing that you think is everybody, and then you do the dumbest thing. You know what I mean? So like if you write a horror movie and you don't put jump scares in it, you mess up. But in comics, you can't really do that. But so like, for me, it's always like it's sort of like a clever joke, it's a dumb joke, it's a butt joke, and it's like then there's something that just maybe I think is funny, and that applies to everything. Character story. You don't want to make something that's so niche that people don't want to read it,
right?
Or I don't. So it's finding that balance, and like Peacemaker is a great example, and Marvel Unleashed are great examples of like, well, there's a greater audience than just me, but I say, as I've said repeatedly, I do think as a creative, art, anything, like really do the thing that you wish existed. You know what I mean? Like if you want to be a boss, be the type of boss that you think should be, right? The kind that you'd want to have. But I think for creatives, like if your thing is, I like cerebral science fiction, dude, make that thing that you wish that no one's done yet. That you're like, or do the version of a thing you like that you think could be better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's okay. Listen, everything's been done, but I think like that's the thing is like you'll have enthusiasm for it, and when it's done, even if it's not some sort of, no one's getting rich in comics. You know what I mean? But they go, oh, the thing is, you can look at that book, you can pick up the book, and you'll be like 5 years, you'll be like, oh, it's still pretty good. I made the thing I wish existed, and that's what it's all about. Like that's the whole beginning, middle, and end for me. Is like I just want to make stories people enjoy, and I'm one of those people. So
yeah. No, I fully agree, because it's like art, man. It's art. You're putting it out there, and as long as somebody enjoys it, that's fulfilling. In its own right. So I definitely get it. And it is a balance. Lauren, did you have any final thoughts real quick?
No, because I had some questions, but you answered them naturally, and that's the best kind of that's the best kind of interview, is just the organic back and forth. Well, one of my questions was what made you do karate and prom, and your answer was just amazing. So
yeah. Karate Prom.
Right off.
Don't you think, you know, sometimes the titles aren't good, you know?
But like this
coming out right now. I have a book coming out called Pine and Merrimack, which I really like. It's about a married couple who's solving a crime that gets worse and worse and worse. But Pine and Merrimack is where their office is located. And I think Pine and Merrimack sounds good, but it means nothing. It doesn't ask the reader a question, right? I have a book out called I Hate This Place. That's a horror movie about a haunted ranch, more or less. It asks a question. You want to go, why do they hate this place?
You're right.
I kind of want to know why they hate this place. Pine and Merrimack doesn't do that. Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton maybe makes you go, who's Trigger Keaton? I don't know. Karate Prom. Who's gonna say no? Hey, do you want to read Karate Prom? No.
All right. Sorry, you hate fun.
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Which part do you not like?
But
like
seriously,
both of them.
Like what was it? Prom? Was it karate? Did you have a really bad experience? Did this happen to you? And it just is bringing up Vietnam like flashbacks? I don't know.
do you get the insinuation that there's going to be a prom that has karate at it? You're not into that?
No, that doesn't sound like. All right, that's not the kind of person.
Like your prom is pretty boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, seriously, thank you, everybody. Buy this book, share it, let him know where you find it. First of all, if you find it like a Target or Barnes and Noble,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Share it out there. Like, let the man know. I want to know.
I want to know. I won't. It won't happen. This isn't the one. But God,
I'm going to.
How cool would that be? How cool would that be?
I feel like it's something I would definitely see at Barnes and Noble, especially that
pretty
hardcover. Yeah.
Barnes and Noble should be pretty good. Yeah. But Target, Myers.
Go and hunt.
I feel like Target is getting more variety in their books.
Yeah, I think so. When you're going up and picking up the latest Taylor Swift vinyl, that I may or may not be doing as well, like just make sure you swing through the book sections right next to the vinyls, man.
Yeah.
What you're already there.
Do
yourself a favor.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, make sure you go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and then follow this good man if you are not, which if you're here, you found Karate Prom, go read the rest of his good stuff. And we will see you guys next week with some more exciting action.
Dune.
No, we are going to be talking Dune.
I will have the book finished and both movies, and I'm going to watch the old school movies. So we will be doing Dune, which will lead us into Star Wars month.
Yes. More exciting things. So talk to you guys later. Cheers.